Thank you once again for this opportunity to present the Mangoro Market Meri program. So Mangoro Market Meri, or MMM for short, is a platform for women to generate income based on sustainable mangrove management. And so the goal of the MMM program is to generate income, strengthen food security, and improve the livelihoods of women and their communities through sustainable management of mangroves. Sustainable use of mangroves not only gives alternative livelihood options to people in coastal communities, but also help in protecting these ecosystems. Hence, it is important for climate change mitigation as well. In our program, the development of sustainable certified markets for resources usually harvested and traded by women, such as mud crabs and shellfish, have been identified by women as an important income generating activity to focus on. As a first step in developing new markets, we wanted to understand the current value chains for the mud crabs in the communities we work with, especially the issues faced by the women involved in the trade. We wanted to understand the common challenges they have to deal with and the barriers they are faced with. We wanted to understand what they need to do to add value to their products to attract alternative markets. Since we do not have a lot of time in the communities during our visits, we adapted the methodology of the value chain mapping with the help of the CSIRO team to suit our needs. We decided to use a virtual chain mapping to start the conversation with the women in the villages about their trading activities. Using the participatory approach to map the value chain, it provided a space for women to think about how they are a part of the wider context in which they live every day while conducting their trading activities. Since we conducted the value chain mapping during our first visit to the communities, it was also very useful for us to hear from the women about the challenges they face daily, including the drivers of change which might have an impact on their value chains. The value chain mapping was conducted during focus groups in which we used butcher paper, colored pens, and post-its of different colors to describe and map the value chain of mud crabs. The activities during the value chain mapping were organized as a storytelling process. Women started telling us all the activities they usually do, from when they leave the house to when they arrived at the fishing grounds, mainly the mangroves, to when they take the mud crabs home and store them, to when they finally sell them. So that's number one, which are the value chain activities. We then ask them to tell us about the people they usually deal with during the activities. If they deal with middlemen, buyers, or if they sell the mud crabs directly to people to consume them. And these are the actors. We then ask about the relationships with the different types of people they deal with during these activities and if they trust the people they deal with. So this describes the various links that they have. We then discuss prices and how much they usually spend while doing all these activities and how much they usually earn in doing these activities. So this involves pricing. After this, we use sticky notes of different colors and ask the women to identify the barriers they encounter during their activities. We ask them to put the sticky notes close to where they occur along the value chain. So by doing that, we create the context. Finally, we discussed any other issues they face arising from the harvesting and trade of mud crabs. So these are the issues and the opportunities. During the value chain mapping, interesting points came out. For example, women involved in trading activities do not earn anything if the money spent to arrive at the market and back home and the long time spent away from home are accounted for. This finding came as a surprise for the women. And also women in Millen Bay pointed out that security while fishing in the mangroves was one issue. Another issue that came out was unintended consequences of the development of new markets due to the income now readily available to women who started gambling. This finding was an eye-opener for us, as we have never heard about this before. This point also highlighted to us the need for constantly monitor and evaluate projects. In our most recent visit last week to Milne Bay, we also discussed with women the impact COVID-19 had on their livelihoods, as it suddenly stopped all their trading activities outside the village. This last point reinforced the need to use value chain analysis to prove or increase the resilience of the value chain against the impact of future drivers of change, including climate change, or as in this case, pandemics. Due to COVID-19, we had to pause our operation for a while, and thus we are still at the beginning of the program, and we have not completed our value chain analysis yet. At the moment, women in the communities do not have any options to market mud crabs, and as mentioned, the available value chains are vulnerable to pressures from climate change and other drivers of change. Here you can see the completed map for mud crabs from the women in Milne Bay before COVID-19 came. So as you can see, before COVID-19 came, the Milne Bay women have access to buyers locally, or are mostly unlicensed buyers in Milne Bay, and then also they have access to domestic markets in Port Moresby. And from the unlicensed buyers, you can see that trading for the crabs to the exporters in Port Moresby, which eventually reached the international markets. We have resumed our visits to the communities only recently, and we are planning to update our analysis of the value chains, including doing a market analysis. And since we do not have the required expertise within our team, we will seek for external collaboration. During our next visits to finalize the value chain analysis, we are planning to update existing value chains and conduct multi-stakeholder workshops with stakeholders from the communities, the district, the provincial, and the national governments, including the private sector. The workshops would be a good opportunity to discuss constraints and barriers women face and agree on possible interventions that would enhance the resilience and sustainability of the value chains. Thank you, Thomas.